House of Representatives committee has voted to release partially redacted tax documents from Donald Trump and said tax authorities had failed to properly scrutinize his returns while he was president. The House Ways and Means Committee voted to release a summary of Mr. Trump's tax returns for 2015 to 2021, the years when he was running for president and serving in the White House. That could lead to more unwelcome scrutiny for the former president as he mounts another White House bid. Mr. Trump, unlike previous presidential candidates, refused to make his tax returns public as he sought to keep secret the details of his wealth and the activities of his real estate company, the Trump Organization. The committee also said the U.S. Internal Revenue Service did not follow its own rules when it failed to audit Mr. Trump's tax returns during 3 of his 4 years in office.
I would think what people will likely be surprised about is the extent to which the IRS was not conforming to their own.
So, regrettably, the deed is done. Over our objections in opposition, Democrats on the Ways and Means Committee have unleashed a dangerous new political weapon that overturns decades of privacy protections for average taxpayers. The era of political targeting and of Congress's enemies list is back. It's clear, too, that no Congress has ever made public, the full private tax returns of any American taxpayer. This is especially troubling because, as you heard us comment here at the end, this committee voted on documents that are not yet complete.
Well, for more of these stories, Arise U.S. correspondent Eric Ham joins me now from Washington. Good to see you, Eric. Let's start with Mr. Zelensky's what appears to be a surprise visit to Washington. What's the headline of that visit?
Well, the headline is stealth, surprise, and of course, more money and resources. We know that President Zelensky is making this trip to Washington to the surprise of many, but it comes at a time when right now the U.S. government is going through a change. And we know that Republicans who will be taking control of the House of Representatives are having mixed thoughts about continuing to provide resources and funding to Ukraine. Now, all of this comes, Charles, as we know that negotiators are still working on a massive Ukraine package that we are told will eclipse the most recent package of $37 billion. We're told right now the top line number in that package is approximately $45 billion, but it is still under negotiation. So clearly, President Zelensky is coming to Washington to fortify the relationship, of course, with the largest donor of military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine at a time when the United States is currently working on that package. And so he will speak with President Biden. They will hold a joint press conference later this afternoon in the East Room of the White House. From there, we know that President Zelensky will then head to the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue, where he will give a joint address to Congress later this evening at the invitation of the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
And Eric, you've mentioned previously that Congress goes into the control of the Republicans in a few weeks' time. I mean, is there the prospect that this unprecedented levels of support we've seen for Ukraine might diminish? Is President Zelensky getting in now because he's concerned aid might dwindle, so he needs to make that push now?
Well, Charles, let's actually talk about that, because that's part of what is taking place. Because right now, lawmakers are working on a massive spending bill that will fund the U.S. government through the end of the fiscal year of 2023. If that package actually goes through, that $45 billion in aid to Ukraine will be part of that package, which will mean that President Zelensky will not have to worry about diminished resources over the next year as they continue to try to fend off Russia. However, what we have seen in the last 24 hours is that House Republicans are now attempting to bully and cajole Republican senators to not support this spending bill. And they have said that if, in fact, Senate Republicans support that, all of their initiatives, all of their priorities will be dead on arrival in the House Republican caucus next year. Now, Senate Republicans have rebuffed those threats, and it looks like they will likely get a deal because, quite frankly, Senate Republicans aren't so secure that House Republicans can actually govern and get things done next year. But what we're seeing right now is, as those negotiations are playing out, as we have seen from President Zelensky, who has shown himself to be a very politically savvy and sophisticated individual, he is here in Washington to sort of grease the wheels on that spending bill, but also attempting to try to change the hearts and minds, perhaps, of some of those Republicans who are perhaps recalcitrant to actually provide this record level of spending to Ukraine. But at the same time, recognizing that Ukraine needs so much more. And also today, with President Biden announcing that the United States will send that much needed Patriot missile defense system to Ukraine, what we're seeing here is President Zelensky attempting to try to get in front of some of those challenges that could pose problems, not only now, but certainly in the future as this war continues to drag out.
Well, let's turn to Donald Trump's taxes, Eric. Briefly, a congressional committee has voted to make public 6 years of his tax returns. What might these tax returns reveal about Mr. Trump's finances?
Well, what we've already seen is a report has been released that showed that the IRS actually did not do the legally mandated job of actually auditing the president's taxes while he was in office. It is in law, enshrined in the law, that the IRS is supposed to audit every president and vice president. And what we learned is that did not happen for President Donald Trump. And there is growing concern that he may have taken liberties with some tax credits and which enabled him to pay a very minimal amount of taxes. We know that in 2017, the president paid only $750 in taxes, and then the subsequent 3 years, he paid zero in taxes, claiming millions of dollars in losses. And so that's what we're seeing come out as these tax returns are being released in the lead up to this report that shows that there were massive shortcomings that took place within the federal government as it relates to Donald Trump's taxes.
And Eric, we've got about 30 seconds or so. Do we know when the public might see these tax documents, or is that unclear?
Well, we're told that it could take at least a couple of days because they are going through the redactions of the tax documents to make sure that bank account information and things like that are not made public. But we are told that it could be within the next 2 to 3 days that those taxes are made public.
Eric, thanks very much indeed. Eric Ham, Arise US correspondent, talking to me there from Washington.